Today we're going to talk to you about connectors in 12D Synergy. Talk about what are connectors, give some examples of the WorkflowMax connector and the Outlook Contacts connector, talk about how you configure connectors, and how to get started using connectors. Connectors allow 12D Synergy to communicate with other software products. They run constantly in the background of Synergy and pull in data. This allows you to work in Synergy with information stored in other software products, such as jobs, tasks, documents, suppliers, contacts, and notes. And attributes. Because Synergy's attribute system is so flexible, you can bring any kind of data in from an external software application. For example, job attributes like job status and job type, document attributes like author and sign-off status, supplier attributes like contact phone number and procurement manager, client attributes like office address and client since date, and anything else that you might want to bring into Synergy. Connectors are plugins for Synergy. The 12D Synergy programming team have developed a range of connectors that work with common software products, including WorkflowMax, Outlook, MYOB, Excel, Abtrac, Dynamics CRM, SharePoint, and Xero. The data that each connector imports depends on what is stored in that external system. For example, the WorkflowMax connector pulls in job quotes and invoices, whereas the SharePoint connector pulls in Word documents and Excel spreadsheets. I'll play a video that shows the WorkflowMax connector as an example. Here's an example job in WorkflowMax, design job for 12D Solutions. After we create it in WorkflowMax, the connector syncs the job data. When we then search in Synergy, the job is opened, and you can see that various fields have been transferred across. So fields such as the job name have come across, various attributes have been populated. The folders and files from WorkflowMax have been imported. The data doesn't need to be entered twice. In this example, we chose the design job type in WorkflowMax. And when it came across to Synergy, it drove the creation of the job based on the design job template, which means the Synergy job is automatically populated with the folders, attributes, files, etc. for a design job. In the future, when information is changed for this job in WorkflowMax, it will also update in Synergy when the connector next runs in the background. Once a connector pulls information into Synergy, you'll be able to use all of our standard features with the data, such as our powerful search, change history, versioning, and rollback. These are the configuration settings. You can run a connector now. You can run it in test mode, which I'll talk a bit more about in a minute. You can set it to run on a schedule every certain number of seconds. You can say who the connector runs as, and then each connector has specific settings. So for example here, this is the WorkflowMax connector, so it has the web address used to pull down data from WorkflowMax. Next section that is configurable are the data mappings. You can map the data from the external software, field by field, into attributes in Synergy. You name these attributes however you like. You can leave some of them blank, and then that field won't get imported. And you can leave entire entities blank. So in this example, contact mappings are not being imported. There's also the automatic mapping feature at the top. If you click yes, then this takes the pain out of setting up mappings. It automatically sets them all at once. Now talk a little bit about the contacts connector. This is a flexible connector, a tool that allows you to import contacts into Synergy. It works with a few different file types that are commonly used to store contact information. CSV is one of them. So here you've got a CSV file displayed as a spreadsheet in Excel. This could be an existing spreadsheet that your company uses to store contacts, or they might have generated it from a database, or a program of some type. It might have many records. You may have also exported it from your Outlook address book. Another file type we support is XML. This is a common format, so it may have been exported from lots of different platforms. For example, a cloud platform like Salesforce. And you need a way to get these contacts into Synergy without much effort. The file can be on the local file system, or it can be stored within Synergy. You select the file, and then you run the connector. After it's run, the contacts will be imported into Synergy. So here's an example looking at John Johnson. We've loaded up the Synergy client, gone into the contacts window and searched for the contact. You'll see that all the attributes have come across as they were in the CSV and XML files. Out of the box, the contacts connector has some supported attributes built in. This makes the process as easy as possible. These are the standard fields that you can see here that are most commonly used. First name, last name, email, phone, mobile address, etc. If any of these attributes don't already exist on your Synergy server, then the connector will take care of creating them for you. For example, you can combine the postal address, postal city, postal region, postal country, and postal postcode into a single address type attribute named postal address in Synergy, rather than pulling them all into separate fields. You could also have custom attributes. The contacts connector supports defining custom attributes. In this case, we've said that the company has account software ID number, primary work address code, is located in Brisbane, and main vehicle registration as custom fields. So we can ask the contact connector to look at our CSV file, discover the custom fields, and then automatically set them up to map across to attributes in Synergy. We can change the name and the type of those attributes when they come through. This means that every single field in your files can be imported, and they don't need to conform to any specific naming convention. You probably don't have to make many changes to your existing spreadsheet to get the data you want into Synergy. After you've modified or added any contacts in your external system, this can happen as many times as you might like. When you run the connector again, it will update and bring across those changes into Synergy. Just talk a little bit now about getting started with connectors. First of all, you've got some prerequisites. You need to determine your requirements, understand which data you want to import into Synergy. That'll consist of entities and fields. Some example entities are jobs and suppliers, and example fields might be job name, created date, a contact's phone number, or location. Another prerequisite, you need to apply for access to the other software products. For example, if it's an external system that lives in the cloud, you probably need access to its API. If it's an internal system, like MYOB, then you need access to the files on your server. Another prerequisite is you need to apply for a new 12D Synergy license, because most connectors require a license that authorizes it. Then you move on to the setup step. First setup step is that you need to download and install the connector. You download the connector from the 12D Synergy website and install it through the administrator program. Next setup step is configure the connector and its mappings. Next setup step after that is to back up the 12D Synergy server database. We strongly recommend a backup of the Synergy server database before you try out a connector. You shouldn't need to go back to that data, but this means you have a fallback in case you didn't configure it correctly when it ran. Then we move on to the test step. You should use the Run Test button that you saw earlier to run the connector in test mode. This will only import a small controlled amount of data from the other software into Synergy. It gives you the opportunity to go through, look at that data that's imported in Synergy and make sure that it's correct and formatted the way you wish. Once you're happy with the data, finally you move on to the Go Live step. You set up a schedule. When you're happy with the imported test data, it's time to run the connector for real. Thank you for joining us to learn about connectors in 12D Synergy.